giveth more grace as our burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength as our labors increase. To added afflictions he addeth his mercy. To multiply trials his multiplied peace. For his love has no limits, his grace has no measure, his power has no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth, and he giveth, and he giveth again. When we have exhausted our store of endurance, when our strength has failed and the days have done, when we reach the end of our hoarded resources, our Father's full giving has only begun. For his love has no limits, his grace has no measure, his power has no boundary known unto man. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth, and he giveth, and he giveth again. Fear not that thy need shall exceed his provision. Our God ever yearns at his resources to share. Lean hard on his arm, everlasting availing. The Father both thee and thy load will bear. For his love has no limits, his grace has no measure, his power has no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth, and he giveth, and he giveth again. His love has no limits, his grace has no measure, his power has no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth, and he giveth, he giveth, and he giveth, he giveth, and he giveth, and he giveth again.
All right, let's give God praise for the awesomeness and the amazingness of a God who gives over and over again. We give thanks just for the opportunity to be here with the Noonday Word with Hymns with Phil Carter. We give God praise for that. We want to thank God for the ministry of Philip Carter. And I am just glad to be with you all again, to just share in these opportunities of worship, just to take a break in the middle of the day, just to reflect and focus and refocus on what God is calling us to do and who God is calling us to be. So this is, again, a rich blessing for me, and we welcome you to this amazing experience with Hymns with Philip Carter, Noonday Word. The text I would like to invite us to consider today, if you will, is from the 10th chapter of Hebrews 10, and we will pick up from the 19th verse and conclude at the 24th. Hebrews 10, 19 through 24, and this will shape our noonday sermonic conversation with you. And it reads this way: brothers and sisters, we have confidence that we can enter the Holy of Holies by means of Jesus' blood, through a new and living way that he opened up for us through the curtain, which is his body. And we have a great high priest over God's house. Therefore, let's draw near with a genuine heart, with the certainty that our faith gives us, since our hearts are sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies are washed with pure water. Let's hold on to the confession of our hope without wavering, because the one who made the promises is reliable. 24th verse says, and let us consider each other carefully for the purpose of sparking love and good deeds. Don't stop meeting together with other believers, which some people have gotten into the habit of doing. Instead, encourage each other, especially as you see the day drawing near. Here ends the reading of God's holy word. Friends, I wanted to come to you today because one of the things that's clear is in this noonday hour, when we gather here, even virtually, we actually gather as the church. We're not on Sunday. It's not a Sunday night. It's not a Sunday morning. It's a noonday hour in the middle of the week, and yet we are the church that is gathering together. I want to use as a subject for these thoughts, surviving the church. Surviving the church. First, let me say that I was reading some statistics put out by Pew Research, and sadly enough, the largest religious entity and category in the United States, the largest growing, is that of atheism. 26% of the American population is atheist or don't believe or connect to a God. 26%, a quarter of the population are non-believers. And we all can come up with our theories of why, and we all can come up with our excuses to why we, are finding our churches kind of slipping in membership or attendance. But the truth is, if you are honest, it's just outright hard sometimes to hang in with the church. I tell you, sometimes it is hard and difficult to stick with church. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can survive the church. Now, the writer in Hebrews tells us to forsake not the church. In the King James Version, it says, forsake not the assembly We can't stop meeting together. We still are called to be together. We are still called to be the church. Come what may, regardless of what goes down, we are called to be the church. But sometimes we mix that meaning up, and we instead of called to be the church, we feel that we're called to be a social club. We're called to be a civic community. We're called to be an organization like any other general organization. But the truth is, we're the church. We are the church. How do you survive it, though? Because it's kind of rough sometimes. We get our feelings hurt. Some things don't go our way. You know, sometimes it's challenging. There are people in there that challenges us. You know, sometimes we put so much work and effort in it and it looks like we're not getting some return. How do we hang in there when church gets difficult and when church gets tough? And above all, if we're being honest with each other, many of us may have had some of those moments when we just felt like rolling out. You know what? Y'all can have this. And we felt like going our own way. So here's a couple of things, several things actually, that I'm inviting you to think about when it comes to surviving the church. Number one, friends, the church is God's plan to transform the nations. The church is God's plan to recover creation. The church is God's plan to renew creation. The church is God's plan to redeem creation. The church is God's plan to bring people back unto God. We're just a plan. Some of us think we're a building. Some of us think we are a denomination. You know what we are? We are a plan. God uses us as God's plan to recover, to redeem, to restore, and to reconnect broken people back to God. Before you realize anything about church, you need to know that church is God's plan. Church is God's plan for us to reclaim God's creation, that creation that was destroyed in the garden with just two people and a demonic presence. That's all it takes for destruction to go down. But we are called to reclaim that innocence, to reclaim that salvation, to reclaim God's original purpose for humanity, which was to worship and praise God. We got to bring people back. The church is God's plan to do that. Number two, a couple of things to know. Number one, the church. Number two, the church has its own seasons. The church is always in a season. And sometimes the church is in high momentum. Sometimes everything is falling in place and things are going well and folks are growing and choir is just blazing. Musicians are off the hook. Sometimes we just in a great place. Sometimes church is incredible. But there are other times church is kind of down. There are times that church goes through difficult challenges. There are times when the church isn't clicking on all cylinders. There are times when things aren't coming together. There are times when there's disruption. There are times when there's interruption. There are times when things just aren't hitting as they should. Churches have seasons, and most churches, if you've been around long enough, you've gone through a bad season with the church. But no matter what the season is, the church is still the church. No matter how difficult it is, the church is still the church. Even if the church is limping, it is still the church. If the church is struggling, it is still the church. Night hour, the church is still God's plan to redeem the world. We're still a church, even in all the different seasons we go through. Number three, the church is ground for the human and the divine to connect. The church is ground where humanity meets the divinity. And sometimes what we get mixed up with is we want people to be divine. I'm sorry, This is good to me today. We want people to be God. We want people to be always forgiving, always kind, always nice. And that's just not the case. When we roll up in church, we bring our humanity in it. We bring our stuff in it. We bring our challenges up in there. When we go to church, we go to encounter the divine, but we don't go as the divine. And when we go to church, we bring our humanity. But when God comes to us, God brings God's divinity. And God utilizes this mix to make something happen. So church is that entity that we experience a mixture of our imperfection with God's perfection. And sometimes we get caught up on people's imperfections, so much so that we don't even remember to connect to God's perfection. I'm so busy worried about you for not speaking to me. I'm so busy mad at you for wearing what you're wearing, or I'm so busy paying attention to who you're talking to and who you're speaking to. I'm so busy being distracted by your style of worship that I forget that I'm not here to encounter you. I am here to encounter God from on high. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we can sit together and praise God together, but I'm not here for you. I am here to encounter the Holy of Holies. I am here to encounter him who is God. All right. So when we come to church, we got to be aware of that mixture of humanity and divinity. And some of us come to church thrown off because they're encountering more humanity than they are divinity. And you got to make sure that your measuring stick is situated in the right place, that you get more of God than you get of what everybody else is doing around you. And this is why we don't stick with church, because we're focused too much on the humanity and not the divinity of what God is doing. All right, let me move on. Surviving the church. You know, one of the things we need to survive the church is to realize that every Sunday, every sermon, every song is not going to speak to you. There are some Sundays that you're going to sit in church and that sermon will just not connect to you. And the choice of music, it just won't connect with you. The flow of the service, it just may not be yours. But the quality of what happens in worship is not always determined by your ability to connect to it. Sometimes you've got to give a witness to things you already know. And it might be a sermon that you've heard before, or it might be some content that you've lived through before and you're past that. But now is your chance to be a witness to the sermon. You may already know that song. That song may be an important song to you 10 years ago in a particular season, but now you can give witness. Every Sunday, every experience is not going to be an experience crafted for your individual specific location. Sometimes you got to step up out of yourself and step up out of your expectations and step up out of what you want and step up out of what you prefer and step up out of what you deem as quality and step up out of what you think is the proper framework for your religious experience and reach for an experience that is higher than what you can create. Reach for the God that is active. And if God ain't doing something in your life in that moment, then you should bring that God is doing something in somebody else's life, that sermon is touching somebody else, that song is moving somebody else, and give witness to it so that somebody else might be inspired. Every experience is not for your enjoyment. And every experience of worship and every sermon is not for your specific location always. Sometimes God has a larger plan. And don't be looking at the preacher crazy. And don't be looking at the choir like they're out of whack because they're not connecting with your specific location. Because when we come to church, we don't just come for ourselves. Woo. When we come to church, we come to witness. and give witness to what God is doing, not just in my life, but in the world. So I can have a powerful experience if I see somebody else change, if I see somebody else being saved, if I see somebody else being healed. I can join the heavenly bandwagon and say, thank you for what you're doing in somebody else's life. Sometimes you're not blessed because you can't thank nobody, God, for what God is doing elsewhere. Sometimes you just have to go through that season where it may not be clicking for you. That's okay. I can thank God for where it is clicking, because I know that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their faith and their strength, and they shall mount up with wings as eagles. You got to learn how to wait in worship, and you got to learn how to wait in church, and you got to learn how to wait during seasons, because it's not going to always be about you. It's not going to always be about you, friends. Sometimes to survive church, we got to go through those periods and those sermons and those songs that might not be addressing our specific situation. To survive church, friends, the next thing is I want to encourage you to be okay with change. Change happens. Change is a part of life. And sometimes things have to change. And I can't tell you, all the years I've been preaching, I cannot tell you how many believers I have seen debilitated by change. Debilitated by change. I know I got to hurry up. Let me hurry up this thing. Sometimes we can't move. We so mad that we can't worship. We so angry that we can't love because something changed. Something that we decided that God feels is most important to any and everything. All right. Be okay with change, because God is a God of adjustments, and God is a God of shifting, and God is a God of change. And there are times that you're just going to have to change location, change ideology, change thought process. There are times you're going to have to do what? Grow. And it's impossible to grow and stay the same. You can't do it both ways. You can't grow and be at the same place. It doesn't work that way. Either you're going to take the risk to grow and be open to change, or you're going to be closed to change and not grow. And when we don't grow, we do what? We decline. All right, I'm almost there. Surviving church. Church has moods, just like you do. Some churches are tired. Some churches are energetic. Some churches are just weary. Some churches are just filled with good momentum. Churches have moods. Don't abandon ship because your church is going through a little mood during a particular Sunday or a particular season. Next, sometimes churches need rest. Even churches need rest. There's a time that the church needs to chill out. There's a time that the church needs to step back a little bit and reassess some things. Don't abandon ship because the church might be going through a period of reflection and contemplation, which is also a path to holiness. Surviving church. Did you know that you're responsible for a lot of your experience that happens in church? It's some of the stuff that goes down. That's up to you. But some of us let somebody else's behavior determine what our experience can be. Have you ever been in a choir and you singing and you just going in and the choir is just all pumped and people in the congregation just looking at you like this? And that makes you change your whole experience of worship. Listen, you're not singing for somebody's applause. You're not singing for somebody's affirmation. You're singing because, number one, God called you to sing. Number two, you are giving witness to God's activity in the world. Number three, you know that the God that you're singing for and the God that you're singing of is a God that still lives, that still works, that still changes, that still heals. And somebody's response to it is irrelevant, because I know whether you down for it or whether you not, whether you like it or whether you don't. I know my Redeemer lives. That's what we do when we're singing and when we're worshiping and when we're preaching. I see preachers working so hard to get those amens. That's not what you're up there for. Tell the story and sit down. Sometimes that's all we can do. Lastly, let me just jump to this. Friends, you get extra credit for just showing up. You get extra credit for getting up in the morning and deciding, you know what, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and I will be glad in it. You're going to get a blessing for that. You're going to get a blessing for getting dressed, getting in that car, getting on that bus, getting a ride, just showing up to that sanctuary. You're going to get a blessing for that. You're going to get a blessing for sitting in that pew. And nobody has said anything. A sermon hasn't been preached. A song hasn't been sung. But you will get extra credits just by showing up. Just by being available, just by being present, God will bless you. And you won't even know always when that blessing comes, because God has two ways God blesses. Sometimes that blessing is like a sunrise. It slowly evolves over time. And other times that blessing is like a light switch. But either way, somewhere in between, you're going to get blessed just by showing up. You're going to get blessed just by being present. You're going to get blessed just by saying, Lord, I am here. Do with me what you will. Speak to me how you will. Change what you will. Create in me a clean heart that I might be renewed, because you've brought me from such a long way. You've opened doors that have been slammed in my face. You've lifted me up out of ditches. You have turned my life around. There have been times I've spent in hospital rooms, but I'm walking now. I'm moving now. I'm talking now. When I think of the goodness of God and what you've done for me, I have no choice but to show up. I have no choice but to admit to the world, the God I love and the God that I serve is the same God that climbed up on a cross on a Friday just for me. And thanks be to God, early Sunday morning, he rolled up out of a grave just for me. And that's why I come. So whether the sermon is bad, whether the choir is off key, whether the ushers aren't smiling, whether the members are gossiping, whether folks are folding their hands and not opening them up in hospitality, it matters not, because God has blessed me that while I was yet a sinner, God proved his love for me. And because of that, I will go and I shall go just to see what the end will be. You better get up Sunday morning and get yourself in church and act like you know that this is the day indeed that the Lord has made. And I am commanded to rejoice and be glad in it, and rejoice I shall. May the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you. May the Lord make the Lord's face to shine graciously upon you. Until we meet again, see you next week. God bless you.